It has happened to me a couple of times actually, people, that I have forgotten to record, and in your batch, fortunately, it's not happened. But if you ask your class 12 seniors, so if any of you notice some point of time I've forgotten the recording, please do remind me. So don't want to miss recording the lecture. Okay, so we saw that if a particular particle during the circular motion is located at a point like this on its circular path, then we define this angle with the reference axis as our angular position for the particle. Okay, and if the radius of the circle is r, so we see that the sign convention that we use is anti-clockwise is positive and clockwise is negative, like that. So theta is supposed plus 30 degrees, we know it's in the first quadrant, but suppose theta is minus 45 degrees, that's the same thing as plus of 345 degrees or 315 degrees, whatever, and that's in the fourth quadrant, like that. So that's the sign convention for the angular parameter theta. Okay, so angular position, then angular displacement, then angular velocity, which right now we are treating like a scalar quantity, but as I told you that angular velocity is a vector quantity which is axial in nature, and we'll discuss more about that later. And finally, angular acceleration. Yes, Anirudh, you have a question, madam?
Yes, sir. If
Yeah,
if it is said that displacement is minus 15 degree and displacement and for 345 degrees, is it same, sir?
Angular position. Okay, so I am saying angular position of minus 45 degrees is the same as the angular position of plus 315 degrees. Understood now why?
Yes, sir.
I might have said 345 by mistake first, but now maybe that was the confusion, right?
Yes.
Okay, so this is one and the same thing. Okay, now similarly, if I say that, okay, at t equal to 0 or t equal to t1, let's say the angular position was theta 1, and after some time the particle has reached here at t equal to t2. So now the new position vector of the particle is this one. So you can see that the magnitude of the position vector is same, but the vector itself has changed. This r2 is not the same as this r1, and accordingly, now this quantity here, the change in angle, this will become my angular displacement. So once again, if I'm saying my angular displacement is positive, that means it has undergone an anti-clockwise shift, and if it is negative, it has undergone a clockwise shift, like that. Okay, so that is the sign convention. So rate of change of angular position with respect to time becomes angular speed or angular velocity if we give it algebraic sign, and it will be expressed in radians per second, whereas these two will be expressed in radians. So this is one more important thing that we should be aware of. Ki, angular parameters में theta and delta theta are which type of parameters? They are dimensionless parameters, because radian is dimensionless, or in that sense it is unitless. We do give it a unit of radian, but it's not equivalent to any physical dimension. Whereas the dimension of angular velocity or angular speed will become time inverse, because it is radian per second, and like that the dimension of this will become 1 by time square, or it will be expressed in radians per second square. So alpha has dimension of t to the power minus 2. This is just some small points. Okay, now we come to the more important point. How do we relate the kinematics parameters in terms of the angular parameters? So kinematics parameters are generally what? Position, displacement, velocity, and acceleration. These become the important things. And finally, most important becomes acceleration, because when we are applying dynamics, then the net force should be equal to mass into acceleration. So we should understand the net force in terms of the acceleration vector. So us terms में what we had started with last time, we had, I think, reached up to up to linear velocity. We had seen the derivation of linear velocity. But in the process of derivation of linear velocity, one very important thing that we saw is we defined two special unit vectors. क्या होते हैं वो unit vectors? Radial and tangential unit vectors, है ना? So unlike I cap and J cap, or unlike the other standard base unit vectors that you studied in vector notation, the difference is these circular unit vectors, they are not fixed. They are fixed in magnitude, they are unity in magnitude, but they are always rotating. So they are constantly changing with respect to time in terms of unit vectors. So if the instantaneous position of the particle, koi time t pe, if the instantaneous position is p, okay, so this instantaneous angle is theta, then at that particular instant, if I draw a unit vector along this line OP, then that becomes my radial unit vector. And if I draw a unit vector tangential to this line OP, that becomes my tangential unit vector. So from this particle, this is my, what I will denote as r cap and I will denote as theta cap. But in certain books like H.C. Verma, it's slightly different notation. So r cap or er cap, they write it as. So this is my radial unit vector. and theta cap or ET cap. I think in Resnick-Halliday they use theta cap only, if I'm not mistaken. So this is the tangential unit vector. So in circular motion, when we express any vectors, whether it is velocity, acceleration, force, etc., we'll see that we express by taking components along these unit vectors rather than taking I cap and j cap, because these make sense. Okay. And of course, now you can see that if you just separately take out in a diagram the r cap and theta cap with respect to your xy system. So based on where your position is, that is your angular position is. So with respect to my xy system, my r cap and theta cap will be like this. Okay, so not only they are mutually perpendicular, but they have a special relationship with the angular position. So if this is the angular position, then theta cap is at a position of 90 plus theta. Okay, so its components accordingly become like that. Okay, so the relationship of r cap and theta cap with instantaneous angular position is that r cap is cos theta I cap plus sin theta j cap, and theta cap is minus sin theta I cap, because the angle with the x-axis is 90 plus theta है. So इसका instantaneous value क्या आ जाएगा, minus sin theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. So this minus sin theta is basically coming because it is cos of 90 plus theta. Okay, and this plus cos theta is basically coming because it is sine of 90 plus theta. So these two unit vectors which I've drawn in the circle over here, if you bring them with your xy axis, you can see that this is how they are looking. So as the particle is moving from position to position, so for example first quadrant mein jab hai, they look like the way I've drawn, but by the time the particle has gone to the second quadrant, your theta has become obtuse. So your r cap will now be like this and your theta cap will be like this, because now the particle is in the second quadrant, and like that for third quadrant and fourth quadrant. And the other thing you can notice that obviously r cap dot theta cap is equal to 0, because so that should always work out. Okay, so these become the key things before we get into the kinematics parameters, because all the vectors like position, velocity and acceleration we will express in terms of r cap and theta. Okay, so this is clear, I hope, people, and no doubts with relation to this. Okay,
No, sir.
okay, now next, very briefly, because we have seen this before.
Can you give 1 minute to note that down, please?
Yeah, sure, no problem.
Thank you, sir.
रिलायंस जियो का है तो इधर पे कनेक्शन लॉस नहीं होगा, मतलब इसका इंटरनेट मेरे घर से भी बेटर है. जनरली रिलायंस जियो इज वेरी रिलायबल. Okay, people, so now we saw that position vector we can now just write like this. It is r cap, because it's along the radial direction. So r cos theta I cap plus sin theta j cap. Okay, so that becomes this. Okay, so where small r is constant, that is the constraint of circular motion. That is the definition of circular motion only, you can say. That is a motion in the xy plane such that magnitude of the position vector is constant. Okay, now the next thing we saw that when we differentiate this, we get the velocity. So I'll just very briefly go over this again, that this becomes r omega into minus sin theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. So while I'm explaining this step of differentiation once more, I'll actually list out a very important thing, that if you differentiate the unit vector r cap, if we differentiate r cap with respect to time, it gives us something very interesting. Rate of change of cos theta I cap plus sin theta j cap. Now we can try this orally. So chain rule use karenge. So d by dt applies on cos theta. So how will apply it? It will become differentiation of cos theta into d theta by dt.
Yes,
So
sir.
derivative of cos theta is how much it is? Minus sin theta, and into d theta by dt is omega. Okay, so that is your x component. And similarly, derivative of sin theta is cos theta, but into d theta by dt, that becomes omega. So we have this universal principle now. It not only applies in this derivation, but in general, that if we are differentiating r cap with respect to time, we'll get omega into minus sin theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. Okay, and that is nothing but, if you see, it is omega theta cap. So it's a very interesting fact that rate of change of r cap with respect to time is actually nothing but omega theta cap. And this is something that we can also show geometrically. Like here we are showing by vector calculus method. We can show this geometrically also. That's very interesting. So you can see that finally what is happening, our velocity vector is r omega in magnitude, because we have ultimately differentiated this term, this r cap term. So this r was a constant, and when we differentiated r cap, we got omega theta cap. So it is r omega theta cap. So that is giving us the very important standard information that the magnitude of velocity at any point of time is directly proportional to the angular speed, or it is radius into angular speed. But also it is telling us very importantly that direction is tangential, because it is along theta cap. So always at any point of time, r vector dot product with velocity vector is 0, because r is along r cap and v is along. So this is also necessary condition for circular motion. Okay. Now, if you think about it, this is also telling you something about what we learned about approach and separation velocity. If the particle is remaining at a fixed distance from the origin, then at any point of time, can it have approach or separation velocity from the origin? It cannot. So at any instant, uska velocity vector kaisa hona chahiye? It should not have any component along the line OP. So that is basically this only, that r dot v should be 0 at any instant. So this is an important another property that you are learning about the circular motion, which you can understand not only from this derivation, that v is along theta cap and r is along r cap, but you can understand it from the concept of approach and separation velocity, that if I'm applying the condition that my particle should not change its distance from the origin, okay, then this condition must be true, that approach velocity of the particle p towards the origin, that should be 0 at all times. Okay. So whether we are at time t here, sorry, approach velocity should not be written as a vector because it's defined as a rate of change of distance. Okay, but this should be 0 always for circular motion. Okay, and that is why we are also seeing that r dot v is also 0. Okay. So at any other time also, the relationship between these vectors will be like this. So after some time, let's say our particle has reached this position somewhere here. So now my new position vector has become r prime like that. So accordingly, now my new velocity vector would have also changed. It might have changed in magnitude also, I don't know, but at least it has changed in direction, because this direction is now perpendicular to this. So this relationship always has to hold true. So suppose this is at time t plus delta t. Okay, so then this is how this relationship has to be. Right. So people, this is clear, this concept. Okay. So it's just, it's giving us a sort of result that we expect from approach velocity concept also, approach or separation velocity, that it must be 0. That means the only way the body is in motion, but at the same time the approach velocity is 0, is that they're perpendicular, the position and this.
So we got the result on deriving r cap because the vector itself must also be moving with omega, right?
Exactly. Okay, so that's what I'm going to show you next, that why we get this result, that rate of change of r cap is equal to omega theta cap, because that unit vector r cap, it's rotating at an angular speed omega. So uska rate of change bhi omega ke proportionate hoga. Okay, and its direction will be theta cap. Why? We'll understand that in a moment. So we can get that from a very interesting vector diagram also. So actually, if you look at some of the older Russian books in classical mechanics, okay, their method of dealing with rate of change and kinematics is not the calculus approach that we're taking. Their method is the pure vector algebra approach. Okay, and there they showed this thing, as a diagram in which the quantities are changing by limiting amounts. So instead of d by dt, they show in a diagram that is moved by a very small amount ds. So they calculate that ds by dt as a vector quantity there. So that's also a very interesting approach to it. So we can see that also next.
So where can we find those books?
Sorry, in the
So where can we find those books?
you can find these books. You have to earn sometimes. Like there is one book called Jagdish bookstore called Jagdish bookstore in Thane, and it's a very irritating place because the guy doesn't know what he has. I mean, in terms of the non-standard books, So if you ask him that, do you have Krotov 1979 publication or something, he'll say no idea. But he'll point you to a basement, which is a horrible place because his basement has no ventilation and has probably got a lot of bugs and stuff also, like very stale air. But if you spend 3 or 4 hours in his basement, you can find an entire treasure over there. Like you can find a lot of old books. So yeah, I'm just joking. Like, but some of these books are available freely also, and you can order for them also. So like Krotov is one example. Pinsky is another example. But at this
Precisely.
stage, getting into these books might be counterproductive for you because
Ah.
the language of these books is difficult because they're translated from Russian to English. So the translation often is very funny, and the words used are strange. So it will take you some time to get used to that. And in the meantime, you have tests coming up, and you have to study chemistry, maths, and all that also. So what
Is
we as teachers do is, over our free time, we sometimes refer to these books just out of self-interest, and whatever is nice and interesting from them, we pick them up for you. And what you can do is when you get into an IIT or a BITS or something, their library is very wonderful. So, instead of maybe 1 or 2 days of the week, instead of your social life on campus, which is very happening, you can spend some time in the library for 1 or 2 hours, cut down on the social life, make a sacrifice, and go through some of these books, whatever is interesting for you. Of course, I mean, your interest may not be in classical mechanics at that stage. Your interest might be something else like computer science or AI or something. But accordingly, like, you'll find the libraries of these institutions as a very nice place. They're like temples of learning, very good environment, a lot of space, absolutely zero noise environment. Okay, nobody to disturb you, nobody to question you how long, like lunch kar lo, dinner kar lo, aisa kuch nahi hai. Whatever time you want to spend, you can spend over there. You can sleep in between also if you want. If you fall asleep on the desk, nobody will come and wake you up. Okay, but yeah, of course, if you take the book and you don't return it on time, then there'll be a fine on you. Like, so that becomes huge. Yes. Sometimes people they accumulate a lot of fine by the time they come to 4th year. So then there's a bill of few thousand rupees, and the problem is till you clear that bill, you will not get your degree. So it can happen that you've got your job and all that, and you are supposed to produce your degree, but the academic office is not giving you a degree because your library fee is pending. Okay, or you damage something in the hostel, and the hostel committee has put a bill for you, and you have a dispute, and you're not clearing that bill. So all these funny things can also happen.
So these are the
Anyway,
things which come in the newspaper.
yes, all these kind of things can come in the newspaper also. Local newsletter में तो आ ही जाएगा, जो campus वाला newsletter होता है, और बाहर भी आ सकता है, like it's quite possible. So now coming back to this relation, dr cap by dt is omega theta cap. So I was telling you about that method of vectorially understanding it. So suppose at some time t, my r cap, I've drawn a sort of magnified version of it. It is like this. Okay, so it is at some angle theta to my x-axis. This is at the time t. Now in my diagram, I will show delta t as a reasonably large time, but imagine it's very short actually. So in a very in some amount of time, my r cap vector would have rotated by some amount, delta theta, let's say like this. Okay, so this is my new position vector at the time t plus delta t. So let's say this is like my final r cap, and this is r cap and not r. So this is my radial unit vector at time t plus delta t, whereas this was my radial unit vector at time t equal to 0 or t equal to t, which is initial. So both of these are unit in magnitude. Okay, both of these are unit in magnitude. So from here to here, you can see what is the change in the position vector. It is this final value of r cap minus this initial value of r cap. This is the change. Okay, so what should be the rate of change of this? It should be this divided by whatever time interval. Okay, now you have, now in this diagram you can see the change is basically which one? It is this. Okay, So this triangle you can see is a very familiar type of triangle. It's that isosceles triangle. So I'll just again suppose I take a more magnified version of this. So ये मेरा triangle है जिसके दोनों sides unity है. Okay, so it's an isosceles triangle with this angle in between of delta theta, and now I'm trying to calculate this side of it. Okay, so you use that standard vector algebra type of approach that you do for isosceles triangles. So you want to find out this side, which is your delta r. So you just drop a perpendicular from here. So the perpendicular actually bisects, and this angle is equal to this angle is equal to delta theta by 2. So the relationship between these will be in terms of magnitude. The relationship will be this delta r will be 2 times the magnitude of each of these, which is unity, into sine delta theta by 2. Correct? This will be okay. So when I talk about the magnitude of this thing, okay, when I talk about mod of delta r cap by delta t, it will be mod of r final cap minus r initial cap divided by delta t. So that mod is becoming how much? It is becoming 2 sine delta theta by 2. Okay, and further in the denominator, see what I can write. I can write delta theta by delta t was omega, no? So I can, I mean, for limit delta t tending to 0, I can do that. Okay, so your delta t for this limit will become how much? It will become omega, I mean delta theta by omega. Of course, in the condition that delta t is tending to 0. Okay, now in the condition that delta t is tending to 0, it also means that delta theta is tending to 0. So sine of some angle, it becomes a small angle. So sine of delta theta by 2 can be approximated as delta theta by 2. So now see what this thing is becoming, delta r cap divided by delta t. But now on this we are applying the limit that delta t is tending to 0. So when we apply that limit, I'm getting, this is becoming delta theta by omega. So this is becoming 2 omega sine delta theta by 2 divided by delta theta. Okay, with the limit that delta theta is tending to 0 or is very small. So the moment I apply this limit, I can write the numerator as the sine delta theta by 2 can just be written as delta theta by 2. So this is becoming, so in the diagram now, in the diagram also you can understand that if your delta theta is becoming very small, this angle here will tend to 90. Okay, and this will tend to become the arc length. No? There's hardly any difference between this one and the arc length. No? So in this diagram, see, imagine delta theta has become a very small angle, like 0.5 degrees or 0.05 degrees. So there's hardly any difference between this chord length, which is the violet colored line, and the dotted curve that I've drawn here, which is the arc length. Okay, so delta r ka magnitude kya ho jayega? It will become approximately 1 into delta theta only, which is the arc length. Okay, so my delta r by delta t is just becoming delta theta by delta t, which is nothing but omega. So the magnitude of delta r by delta t is how much? Omega. And also you can see that this angle will tend to 90 over here. So it's in which direction now? It's in the tangential direction, because this is the tangential direction and this is the radial direction at that instant. So this triangle, as it's getting compressed into a very small sort of arc, you are getting that relationship. That the change in your r cap vector, as this r cap vector is rotating like this, the change in it is basically your r delta theta, and r is 1. So the change is delta theta. So the rate of change is delta theta by delta t. And the direction of that change is perpendicular to the vector itself. So it is along your theta cap. Okay? So this is that sort of logical method of understanding it, or the geometrical way of understanding it. So now you can see that you're in this calculation, coming back to this. Okay. So of course, all this at this stage is unnecessary for us, because we've done the proof of this by, so this quantity, जब मैंने ये limit use कर लिया था delta t is tending to 0, this I can write as dr by dt or mod of dr cap by dt. So that is becoming on the other side omega. Okay, so now when I write it as a vector, I can see this will become omega into theta cap, because it is along the direction which is perpendicular. Direction of dr was theta cap, so it becomes like this. So this is the geometrical proof. I'll just try to minimize this a little so all of you can go through it full detail. Okay. So as I said, this is the geometrical approach of understanding this relation. This relation geometrically is like this. Okay. So this is not compulsory to know, but it's an interesting thing, interesting way of analyzing it. And in later chapters like rotational mechanics and all, you will see that this kind of analysis can become very useful for us.
Sir, I didn't understand the direction part. How did we get the direction, the perpendicular thing?
हाँ, so देखो क्या हो रहा है ना, again you have to really imagine this, that this vector is your initial r cap ना, and
Yes, sir.
this vector is your final r cap. Okay, this one that I'm drawing. Okay,
Yes,
so now the change in this is along this direction. Okay, along this direction. So obviously, if this is delta theta, how much is this angle? This angle is 90 minus delta theta by 2.
Yes, sir.
So now make delta theta tending to 0. So it tends to 90 degrees. Is it clear, beta?
Sir, it makes sense mathematically. I'm trying to imagine it.
हाँ, वही मैं कह रहा हूँ. Try to imagine this. So this red line, Janvi, it has come almost in contact with the blue one. Understood, na?
So no,
So
sir.
as this comes closer and closer, na, this angle delta theta is smaller and smaller, na. So this angle is tending to 90. These two angles here, they are both tending to 90 instead of 90 minus delta theta by 2.
Okay. Yes, sir. I got it. I got it.
But so it's little tricky, but yeah, that is how we have to be. So that again, it comes down to calculus, now visualizing that limit, that delta t is tending to 0 or delta theta is tending to 0. Is visualization of that limit thing. Okay? Okay, now moving on to the next thing. Acha, you had to note down.
Sir, I left.
Yeah,
sir.
guys, I'll put it back. You can note this down. I'll just give you people a minute to note this down.
So done.
Okay, so this is done. Yeah. So now we come to the most important part of this set of derivations. We come to acceleration. But before acceleration, I'd like you people to do one calculation yourself. Like we have seen just now that dr cap by dt came out to be omega into theta cap. We saw this by the calculus method and the geometrical method also. Now like that, tell me what is d theta cap by dt? What is this going to be? Okay, so you can do it by this method also by expressing theta cap as, remember it was minus sine theta I cap plus cos theta j cap, and then use the chain rule and differentiation method, or you can also understand it by the geometrical method. Okay, so you can try it by both of them and just tell me how much this will be. So you'll see you'll get some kind of a symmetrical kind of relationship which will make sense geometrically also.
So minus omega r cap.
Yes, very good. Minus omega r cap is also completely the answer. So how did you calculate it, Janvi? Did you use the chain rule method or did you use geometry?
Chain rule.
Chain rule? Okay, you also chain rule? Okay, so try it geometrically also. Very good. That means you people are very fast in your differentiation at least. No? So d by dt of minus sine theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. So I'm just doing all the steps to give you some time. So this will be minus of d by dt of sine theta whole thing into I cap plus rate of change of cos theta, okay, whole thing into j cap. So further, if you want to write all the steps properly, you should write this as, so, derivative of sine theta chain rule multiplied by d theta by dt. Okay. So if you were doing this like a board question, board level question, you would have to put all these steps. Otherwise, you'll get penalized for. But this kind of thing will never be asked in your board exams, okay? Because it's a little bit beyond the board level of questions. So anyhow, so this becomes minus omega cos theta I cap and minus omega sine theta j cap. So as you can see, it becomes minus omega r cap. So we should also be able to make sense of this geometrically, that why we are getting this result finally, that the rate of change of theta cap with respect to time is minus omega r cap. So once again, if you visualize in our circular motion, this was my position of the particle at some time t. So accordingly, this was my r cap and this was my theta cap at that time. Now after some time, the position has changed to this. So accordingly, the r cap has changed to this and my theta cap has changed to this. So this is what is happening at t plus delta t. This was the case at t. So this angle by which this whole vector has rotated is delta theta. So r cap and theta cap is also rotated by those. So now we are looking specifically at our theta cap, how it has changed. So theta cap, if I draw it separately in a somewhat this thing diagram, magnified diagram. So originally theta cap was like this. It was at a position which would have been like this, where this whole angle would have been 90 plus theta if this angle was theta. So this was my r cap at, sorry, my theta cap. This was my theta cap at t equal to t. And now it has become like this. So without changing magnitude, it's just rotated by a small angle, which I am showing as delta theta, but you have to imagine it as much smaller, d theta, then it will become. So this angle is delta theta. So this has become my theta cap at time t equal to t plus delta t. So the change in this vector is now this one, okay, which is almost equal to the r. Okay, so delta theta cap ka jo magnitude hai, that is almost equal to 1 into delta theta. Okay, so rate of change ka magnitude is delta theta by delta t, which is omega. Okay. And the direction you can see now, this direction is basically your r cap's direction, but minus r cap, because your r cap was like this now. So this direction is now minus r cap. Okay. So that's how your d theta cap by dt, its magnitude is omega, but its direction is minus r cap. So this is how we are showing the same thing geometrically.
Sir, what minus omega r cap means, sir? It's increasing, or the change is in clockwise direction, right?
This is not clockwise, anti-clockwise beta, because the unit vector is r cap. No? Clockwise, anti-clockwise में क्या होता है ना? You're taking an axial vector whose axis unit vector is actually coming out of the plane. Okay, what happens is, see, if you curl your fingers anti-clockwise, no? Like
Yes, sir.
this. If you
The
curl
thumb
your
will come
fingers
out.
anti-clockwise, then your thumb
Yes,
is pointing outwards. This. So that's why. So in that's how. Okay. Now in that logic, if I explain what is happening here, sorry, this is a different lecture. Yeah. So with that logic, now if I look at this one, no? So see, my r cap is like this. Okay. So minus r cap is pointing in this direction. So if minus r cap is pointing in this direction, point your thumb along minus r cap. Now that is the direction of the vector. And this is, and see this d by dt of theta cap we are talking about. This is not a axial vector. This is a polar vector. This is the rate at which your position vector is changing, or your unit vector theta cap is changing. So that's why its direction is along minus r cap. See this blue colored arrow over here. This is the change in theta cap. No? This is your delta theta cap. So what is its direction? Its direction is more or less perpendicular to this red colored line, but opposite to the direction of r cap. Understood? No? Is it clear, Janvi?
no, sir. No idea.
Sorry, come again.
Sir, I've got no idea, sir. What's going on?
No idea about?
Sir, I didn't
Achha.
understand anything.
Okay, so what you are asking is that the significance of this minus r cap, now.
No, sir. Sir,
Then-
so the rate of change, what's the direction of this rate of change, r cap? I understand in the vector diagram. I understand what's going on here, but I'm not able to relate it to this minus omega r cap.
Okay, so see, it's not minus omega, it's like the magnitude of the rate of change. This is not minus, this is omega only. Okay, and the minus sign is significant because the direction of this vector, the direction of d theta by dt, d theta cap by dt, that is minus r cap. Is it clear now, beta?
So let me think about this.
See, if a vector, for example, if we have a vector like this, in the vector diagram I'm drawing about, if we have a vector like this, which I've drawn over here, how will we express the vector A in terms of direction? It is along minus a cap, no? Minus I cap, no?
Yes, sir.
So it will be some magnitude into minus I cap, no? So the significance of the minus sign here is not to do with clockwise or anti-clockwise, because we're dealing with a polar vector, not an axial vector. Got it, no?
Okay, sir, I got it.
Okay. Okay, so now see why this will be very important for us, because next we are going to calculate the acceleration. Okay, so acceleration of a particle in circular motion. So we will apply the normal definition of acceleration, that it is rate of change of velocity, but velocity is in which direction? Theta cap. So we'll have to know how to differentiate theta cap. So that's where the significance of this comes in now. So E is equal to dV by dt, rate, instantaneous rate of change. And recall what was V? V was R omega theta cap. Okay, or we can also expand it and write it as R omega into minus sine theta I cap plus cos theta j cap. But I would prefer to keep it as in terms of theta cap only, so that it's briefer. Okay, now in this, understand one thing, that R is a constant by definition. It is circular motion definition or condition, you can say. Okay, but omega is variable in general. It may be constant in certain cases, but in general, okay, omega is variable. And in fact, we have the definition that rate of change of omega is what? Alpha, angular acceleration. And theta cap is also variable. We just understood that theta cap is all the time rotating. So when we are doing this differentiation next, we'll have to use product rule. D by dt of R omega theta cap. So next step, what we'll have to do is R will come outside because it's a constant, but this we'll have to treat like a product of two quantities, which is variable. So you'll have to apply the product rule. So that will become differentiation of one of the terms into the second term plus the first term into differentiation of the second term. Right? This is clear? Okay. So next step, what will happen? We just substitute these values. Okay. So this one I have written already, but here d theta cap by dt we just saw just now. It was what? It was minus omega r cap. So that's where that small little derivation comes in handy for us, because we can use that directly. So this is becoming r into alpha theta cap plus omega into minus omega r cap. This term. Okay. So now putting this all together, it becomes what now? You can see that the acceleration has two components. Okay. Minus r omega square. I'll write it in order. Radial component. Okay. And r alpha is what we call the tangential component. So this term minus r omega square r cap. Okay. It is what we call the centripetal acceleration. You are familiar with the term centripetal for a long time now, but now you're getting the technical meaning of the term centripetal acceleration because it points along minus r cap. Now the direction is minus r cap, so it points towards center. So it is a vector that is always pointing towards the center of the circular motion. So the term centripetal in Greek means pointing towards the center. Okay, so that becomes that, whereas the term r alpha into theta cap, this is called the tangential acceleration because it points along the tangential unit vector. It's tangential. Okay, so in fact, we give this a special name. I mean, we can give this a special symbol, centripetal acceleration, and this is a special symbol, tangential acceleration. So in any circular motion, in general, we say that the acceleration is the vector sum of two types of accelerations or two components, centripetal plus tangential. Okay, where centripetal is given by this formula minus r omega square r cap. So the magnitude of the centripetal acceleration is r omega square, which can also be written as v square by r because v is equal to r omega, or it can also be written as v into omega. So there are so many different ways in which we can express it. And the tangential acceleration is given by the formula r alpha theta cap So the magnitude of the tangential acceleration is r alpha. Okay, and we will see that that can also be expressed as r d omega by dt, and r being a constant, it can be expressed as rate of change of r omega. So it is nothing but rate of change of speed. So that is another significant part about the role played by tangential acceleration. It is the rate of change of speed. So later we will see that if the circular motion is happening at a constant speed, then there is no tangential acceleration, and that is called the uniform circular motion. Whereas if the speed of the circular motion is changing while the body is moving along the circle, then it must have a tangential acceleration also. And we'll realize very soon that the role played by the centripetal acceleration is that it turns the velocity vector. The velocity vector's direction is continuously turning along with the tangent. So that turning of it is that responsibility lies with the centripetal acceleration to keep it turning. Whereas if the speed is changing while it is turning, then there will be tangential acceleration. Whereas if it's a uniform circular motion, there won't be any tangential acceleration. So we'll note down these points also, but first just get familiar with this derivation.
Then sir, centripetal acceleration is responsible for the change in direction of the velocity, which is
For the
tangential.
continuously changing direction. We'll understand that in a moment in more detail. Okay. Whereas the role played by the tangential acceleration has nothing to do with the direction of the velocity. It is just the magnitude of the velocity, or the speed is changing because of the tangential acceleration.
So what questions do we get in our exams?
With circular motion?
Sir, anything, sir.
Anything as in like you have seen the JEE
Physics.
advanced paper of this.
No, sir, not
MD?
JEE Advanced, sir. Boards, sir, school, the half yearly that we got.
Boards and school. Okay, that you don't worry about, beta. There will be some sample question papers which will be sent to you. But like for example, you know, questions in this for can with this chapter you can have questions related like this, that what is the relationship between speed and angular speed? The answer is V is equal to R omega. Or simple a question is given that, you know, minutes hand of a clock has how much angular speed, average angular speed. So tell me how much that is. Minutes hand, it completes one full rotation in how much time? 60 minutes
2 pi
or
by 6.
3600 seconds. Okay, and one rotation is 2 pi radians, so 2 pi divided by 3600 in radians per second, like that. So now if it says that okay, the minute hand, its length is, let's say, 10 centimeters. So what is the centripetal acceleration of the tip? Okay, so it's omega square r. No, so you calculated omega. Okay, multiply that with 10 centimeters converted to meters. So that is giving you the centripetal acceleration for the point that is lying at the tip of the minute hand. So that would be like a very complicated question at the board level. That kind of question you won't really expect every day, unless you have a teacher who's been unhappy with you and the internal exam wants to screw you. That's a different matter. But in boards, you will not expect more simple type of questions, like, you know, direct formula based type of questions and all these things. Okay.
Okay, so that was my doubt. Is it formula based or what are they going to ask? Okay,
if it is numerical, it will be formula based. Otherwise, it will be like definition, like define centripetal acceleration. So it is the component of acceleration pointing towards the center, and it is responsible for the rate of change of, or the direction changing, like that, you know. Or like they will give you a question that in uniform circular motion, the tangential acceleration is dash. So the answer is 0, because in uniform circular motion, there is no tangential acceleration. So simple definition and concept based things like that. And at the most, like direct formula based questions. Okay. You have not had any internal exams yet, no? In CBSE or in RTPF also, no?
so earlier UT, this is the first written exam and I don't know what's going to happen. Now I get
written
it.
exams. Yeah. And
Okay,
you have all got out of the habit of written exams for a long time now, isn't it?
so that's a factor too.
Yeah, that's a factor. Yeah, so you'll have to get used to it, don't worry. Okay. Right, so coming back to this, now let's just visualize this in the diagram. So what is happening if this is, again, just to repeat the diagram, this is our circular path. Okay. And at some instant, the particle is located at a position which is like this. So what we will see is, in general, if this is the position vector, the velocity vector of the particle will have to be in the tangential direction. It will be like this. Okay. The velocity vector will be such that it is perpendicular. It's like this. So the velocity vector at any instant is r omega theta cap. Okay. But the acceleration vector now, the acceleration vector will have like a general sort of direction, which will be neither radial nor tangential. So it will be something in between like this. Just arbitrarily, I'm taking it like this, but it could be anywhere between radial, and it can never be perfectly tangential because centripetal can never become 0, but tangential can become 0. So this acceleration vector can be exactly along minus r cap also, but it can not be exactly along v, because there'll always be some amount of centripetal acceleration. Okay. So the acceleration vector's two components now, if you look at, so it consists of this component, which becomes our centripetal acceleration, and this tangential component, which becomes our. Okay, so your net acceleration is the vector sum of centripetal plus tangential. So because these are mutually perpendicular, you can see in the diagram. So the magnitude of acceleration is always square root of centripetal square plus tangential square. So this can also be written like this: omega square r whole square plus r alpha whole square, or you can write it as v square by r whole square plus r alpha whole square, whatever. So this is another formula based thing that you can have, that. So we'll see an example or two. So those type of questions are called the kinematics of circular motion type of questions. Okay. So that is this. Okay. Now coming back to centripetal acceleration. Okay, we will see that from this stage, what we'll do is we'll divide circular motion into two categories to understand centripetal acceleration better. Uniform circular motion, or in short, we just call it UCM, and non-uniform circular motion. Okay. So definition of uniform circular motion is circular motion with uniform speed. The speed is constant. So it's constant or uniform speed. Okay. And this is with variable speed. So what happens is something going in a circular path at uniform speed, it also becomes a cyclical motion. Cyclical or periodic, isn't it? Because it will keep repeating its motion in equal intervals of time. So it'll have a time period of 2 pi r by v, where v is constant. Or that is the same thing as 2 pi by omega, where omega is constant. Like the minutes hand of the clock we were discussing, or the seconds hand of the clock, or all these are examples of cyclical motion. But imagine a person running around a circular path where he's initially increasing his speed for the first few cycles, and then maybe he reaches his top speed, so he goes on for some time before he gets tired, and then he starts decelerating. So that phase of his motion where his speed is increasing or decreasing, that constitutes a non-uniform circular motion. And there, of course, the motion is not periodic, because he's taking lesser and lesser amount of time per cycle when he's accelerating, and more time when he's decelerating. So that is your non-uniform circular motion. Now, if you look at, okay, so you can just note down this definition, just take a minute, and then we'll look at acceleration in each case. And then we will understand what I was talking about earlier, that centripetal acceleration is responsible for only changing the direction. It has nothing to do with the speed. And tangential acceleration has only the responsibility of changing the speed. It has nothing to do with the direction turning. So these two things we'll understand. Okay, so this is clear now. So Abhinav is gone out of town or something.
Sir, I don't.
Okay. So now, if you look at uniform circular motion in more detail, so we'll understand few more facts about it. So while we've defined it as something where speed is constant, but automatically it now means that if speed is constant, angular speed is constant. Okay. Now, one thing very important, if somebody asks you what about velocity in uniform circular motion, you cannot say velocity is constant, because velocity has direction. So that is something you have to be very careful about. It means that speed is constant, but not velocity. Okay. Velocity is still variable, because Otherwise it could not be turning. Okay. So now this means that omega is also constant. Angular speed is also constant because you have v is equal to r omega. Okay. And which means that alpha is 0, which means that tangential acceleration is 0. So another way of describing uniform circular motion is it's circular motion with 0 angular acceleration and 0 tangential acceleration. Okay. And you can see that therefore the acceleration in uniform circular motion just becomes the centripetal acceleration. So that acceleration becomes minus of omega square r cap, or minus of v square by r cap. So another fact about this is that therefore in uniform circular motion, the magnitude of acceleration, that is constant. Okay, but again, it is wrong to say it has constant acceleration because the direction is changing. Okay, so it has uniform magnitude of acceleration, but not uniform acceleration. It's not uniformly accelerated. Acceleration itself is not uniform. Okay. And one more thing, what was that? That the net acceleration is the centripetal acceleration. That acceleration is purely centripetal. So this kind of gives us the proof that centripetal acceleration plays the role of turning the velocity vector without affecting its magnitude. Does not affect the speed. Does not affect the instantaneous speed. It's only responsible for this. Okay. So that's what a uniform circular motion looks like. And also, as we've discussed also, that it's a periodic motion or a cyclical motion with a time period of 2 pi by omega or 2 pi r by p.
Then, sir, how does circular motion start?
So it's like, when you switch on a fan, for some amount of time, there must be non-uniform circular motion as it is reaching its particular RPM. But thereafter, it will be in uniform circular motion unless again you change the position of the regulator or switch it off again. Okay, understood the point now?
Yes.
So we cannot have something like this, that one moment the object is at rest and then instantaneously it is in uniform circular motion. There must be, however brief it is, but there must be some period of time during which it is in a non-uniform circular motion. And once it's achieved that speed it wants, if it is now making its tangential acceleration 0, it will continue at the uniform speed, which is the uniform circular motion.
Okay, sir.
So another good example of uniform circular motion is circular orbit of artificial satellites. Okay, heavenly bodies like natural satellites, moons, or planets in orbit around stars, they have more complex orbits which are actually elliptical in shape. Okay? But as it turns out, there is a certain calculation that we can do. If we follow that calculation and take a body above the Earth's atmosphere into space at a certain distance from the surface of the Earth, and then we project it tangentially at a certain speed, then automatically it achieves a uniform circular motion. Because at that certain height, there is a certain amount of gravitational pull that the Earth is applying. So that gravitational pull applies to a certain amount of centripetal acceleration. So if we give it the tangential velocity which corresponds to that centripetal acceleration, then there will be no tangential acceleration. And it will be in a stable circular orbit. Okay, so assuming that during the orbit there is absolutely nothing else that happens, like there is no because it's outside the atmosphere, so there is no frictional forces, and there is nothing like space dust, which is basically dust that comes from meteorites or other floating debris and all that. So if those kind of things are not affecting the satellite, then in principle it should go on and on forever. Once you've given it that correct tangential velocity, there is no other power that you need to supply it on its own. Because of the gravitation of the earth, the direction will keep changing, and because because there is no other force acting on it, so there's nothing to dissipate energy. So the magnitude of its momentum will remain constant, its kinetic energy will remain constant, and it will be in a perpetual uniform circular motion, which is the circular orbit of artificial satellite. So that is, for example, something we'll study in the gravitation chapter. And again, there this concept of centripetal acceleration will become very important. So this is about the uniform circular motion. Okay. So just as a simple example, okay, if we have this situation, let's say that you're looking at the top view of a circular track like this. Okay. Struggle with this. Okay, so this is a circular track on which, let's say, a vehicle is moving at some kind of constant speed. Okay. So this is the top view of a circular track. Okay. Now a car is already achieved the speed it wants. So it's moving in the circular track of radius r at a constant speed v0. So if this is the position A and this is the position B, and this angle is 60 degrees. So given that the radius of the circular track, so a car is in uniform circular motion on the circular track. Okay, so gravity in this diagram is going into the plane. You're seeing the top view of this. Okay, so the mass of the car, how much should the mass of a car be? Maybe 2 tons. Okay, that's how much? 2 into 10 raised to power kgs. 100 kgs is a quintal, is that correct? And 10 quintals are a ton. Okay, so okay. So this is the mass of the car. Now suppose the radius of the circular path is something like 50 meters. Okay, and the car is moving at a constant speed. So it's in uniform circular motion on the circular track at a speed of v0. And let us say that v0 is 36 kilometers per hour. Okay, so first of all, find the time taken to travel from A to B in the diagram. Okay, so the angular displacement between A to B is 60 degrees, as you can see in the diagram. Okay, then I also wanted to do some general type of calculations like the change in velocity vector from A to B. So this has nothing to do with the type of calculations we've done till now. Okay. Then next I want you to find the magnitude of the instantaneous acceleration of the car. Okay, and therefore from that I need to find the frictional force acting on the car. So even though we have not really got into, officially we have not got into dynamics of circular motion, but we just know you have to apply the concept of F is equal to ma, and you're calculating A. So from that, what can you say about the frictional force, the net frictional force acting on all 4 of its tires put together? How much that will be based on this calculation? So if the car wants to keep making the circular motion of radius 50 meters at a constant speed of 36 kilometers per hour, then how much will be the acceleration of the car treating it like a particle, of course. So just try this out, people.
So centripetal acceleration is responsible for changing the direction of the velocity, right? Then sir, what is omega? What is alpha?
Okay, Aryan, let's check your answers. Okay.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Yeah, Janvi, you have a doubt?
Yes, sir.
Tell
Sir,
me,
if
beta.
centripetal acceleration is responsible for
Huh.
changing the direction of the velocity, then what is alpha?
Alpha is angular acceleration, beta. So alpha is 0 na, when there's uniform circular motion. And that's why, see, centripetal acceleration is independent of alpha na, in that sense. You understanding the point, beta?
No, sir.
Why alpha क्या होता है देखो, alpha is rate of change of omega ना. Okay. It is
yes, sir.
v2 theta by dt square, no? So it is how the angular speed is changing now with respect to time. So why it should have anything directly to do with centripetal acceleration? You understanding the point?
Okay, sir. Okay.
Got it now?
Yes, sir.
Okay. Now, when we do dynamics, now you'll understand more about this. Like, you know, if you're talking about what type of forces are acting on, let's say, that satellite which is in circular motion around the Earth, you'll understand the gravitational pull. It's only turning the velocity vector. So, if only gravitational pull was acting, there would be no this thing now. There'd be no tangential acceleration. So alpha is 0. But suppose the satellite has got a booster rocket of its own. So that booster rocket is providing it with the tangential acceleration. So then what is happening? That because there is that force, tangential force, there is tangential acceleration. So there'll be alpha also. No, so the velocity will increase in magnitude also as it's going, but not only in direction. But the role played by the gravitational pull, that's always acting towards the center of the Earth, like friction will act over here. So that will not play any role in this thing, in the tangential part of the motion. Okay.
Okay,
So,
sir.
okay. So that clears your doubt. Okay. So let's come to each of the parts now. So you can see that the time taken from A to B, are we ready to clear that? Okay. So delta theta should be equal to omega into delta t. That is the idea. Okay. And omega is what? V by R. So you can use this. So 60 degrees is pi by 3 radians. Okay. So that should be equal to 36 converted to meters per second. That's how much? 10. So 10 meters per second divided by 50. So the angular speed actually you can see, which is V by R, is 0.2 radians per second. So per second, it is covering an angle of 0.2 radians. Okay. So now we can calculate that how much time it takes for this. So it takes 5 pi by 3 seconds, or we can approximate that as 5 into 3.14 divided by 3. So approximately, yeah, that's 5.2, let's say, seconds. Okay. Right. So this part of the calculation is clear. This is the first part. Okay. Now let's come to delta V. Now this is something different altogether. This is just to understand like how the velocity vector is changing. So you can see that at A, the velocity vector was like this. Let's say the position is along the x-axis. So this is the velocity vector when it was at A. It had a magnitude of V0. Now by the time it comes to B, the angle, I mean the position vector is rotated by 60. So will the velocity vector. So the velocity vector will have become like this of magnitude V0, but this angle will be 60 degrees. So my change in velocity is coming how much in magnitude, people? Kitna hai? How much have you guys got? Nitish? So see in this diagram what it's looking like. This delta V is, you can see that this angle is equal to this angle because this side is equal to this side. So it's an equilateral triangle. So I should be getting my delta V's magnitude as V0 only. Okay. Now you can also do it by vector algebra. Now you can see that if you take this as your x-axis, you can also do it this way, that VA, now A pe kya ho raha hai? Your angular position is 0 as per my convention. So my unit vector, tangential unit vector is what? It is j cap. So the velocity should be how much? V0 j cap. Okay. But by the time you come to B, what is your theta? It is pi by 3 or 60 degrees. So what will be my theta cap? It is minus sine I cap plus cos j cap. So minus sine 60. So that's minus root 3 by 2 I cap plus 1 by 2 j cap. So if you want to do this a very lengthy way, this is the thing. BB will become V0 into this unit vector minus root 3 by 2 I cap plus 1 by 2 j cap. Okay. So now A to B, my change in velocity delta V is VB minus VA. So let's do that calculation also. So minus root 3 by 2 minus 0. So that's minus root 3 by 2 I cap. Okay. And plus half V0 minus V0. So that's minus half. Okay. So that is, so let's forgot the V0 here. So it's ultimately coming out to be what? Minus root 3 by 2 V0 is the X component, and it's this minus this. So minus V0 by 2 is the Y component. Correct. So you can see the mod of this is that much only. It's V0, which is justified by this diagram. So this is much easier the diagram. Similarly, suppose instead of 60, it reached the 90 position, then it would have been 2V sine 45. Remember that isosceles triangle formula? Right? if vector A has equal magnitude to vector B and the angle is theta, then A minus B has a magnitude of 2A sine theta by 2, and A plus B has a magnitude of 2A cos theta by 2. Now the vector parallelogram becomes a rhombus. So you have those special properties of the rhombus. Diagonals are perpendicular to each other. The diagonals are angular bisectors. So one thing you'll see now, in to get like efficiency in solving problems at JEE mains and advanced level, your fundamentals are always very important. Like it's not just about how whether I can solve the second part or not, how fast I can get it. So if your vector algebra, that picture in your mind is that clear कि मेरे पास दो vectors है जिनके magnitude V0 है, उनके बीच angle 60 है. So directly this is a rhombus. Na? When I complete the parallelogram, it's a rhombus. So I have that formula. This should be 2V cos 30. Or the moment you visualize it, you realize, okay, this is an equilateral triangle. So it should not take time like this to solve. So remember, whatever time you're saving, now you are investing in more questions, so more marks, more ranks. So you need that kind of focus always on the concepts. Okay. Now coming to the next part, the acceleration in uniform circular motion, you can see the acceleration is v square by r in magnitude or omega square r. So in this case, that is how much? That is 10 square divided by 50. An acceleration of 2 meters per second square. And this is a centripetal acceleration. This acceleration is centripetal. It's always pointing towards the center. It's always pointing towards the center. So now when you look at the free body diagram of the car as it's going in the circular path, so whether the car is over here at some time and this is the center of the circular movement. So the velocity is in this direction, but the acceleration is in which direction? Pointing towards the center. Okay, so by the time the car has now come to somewhere here in the circular path, now the velocity vector is in this sort of direction and the acceleration is in this sort of direction. Okay. So you can see that in the horizontal plane, what is the net force? It's friction. Mg is going into the plane, and normal reaction equal to mg is coming out of the plane. So there's only one force that can support this acceleration, and that is the friction. And that is why on a flat road, to make a circular path, we need a lot of friction. So that is why roads are actually banked. Now, if you've seen those car races like NASCAR and all, you will see there's a very pronounced steep angle. In commercial roads, it's not so much, but even in flyovers and highways, you'll see. So what that does is it changes the direction of normal reaction. So it gives the normal reaction a centripetal component. So that helps in overcoming this problem of too much friction required and the tendency to slip. So banking angle of a road is one of the first things we'll see when we come to dynamics of circular motion. So we'll come to that. Okay. But what we'll do is we'll keep, so friction acting here is equal to MA. So this will be the net friction on the tires. So I think that was the last part of the question. So this net friction on the tires will become the mass of the car, which was how much? 2 tons. 2 kilograms into the acceleration. So the magnitude of the frictional force will always be 4 into 10 raised to 3 newtons or 4 kilonewtons. The direction will always be towards the center. So in language of circular motion, when we come to dynamics later, we'll see here we will say that friction is the centripetal force, or friction is the agent of centripetal force. Okay, friction is allowing that centripetal force to act and keeping it in circular path. If the car was going on the circle and then somewhere in some part of the track the road becomes smooth, there's no friction available, so it'll just go up tangentially because there's no agent for centripetal acceleration anymore. So the velocity vector will not be able to turn. Okay, so that is this. So that is why you have that intuitive feel also that the faster you're going, the more friction you require. So if you keep increasing your speed, at some stage you'll slip. Or if you go too fast on that turn, you'll slip. You have to adjust your speed according to the friction level. Okay. So now people, what I will do is just a few minutes left in our lecture. So I want to discuss a specific question to do with approach and separation velocity in kinematics. So I want to get back to that. And we'll continue with acceleration in non-uniform circular motion in our next lecture. Okay. So we will do an example question from kinematics. Okay. Now this is a very interesting type of example, but it's a somewhat, initially it will seem like a strange type of application of approach and separation velocity. So in this example, what is happening is that like there are various different situations in which this can happen. Like the situation from which I've originally got this question, this is, let us say, like, you know, this is the overhead view of a port. Okay, so this is the sea on this side. Okay, this is the sea on this side, and this is the port. Okay, now what happens is that at time t equal to 0, one ship is there, A, which at t equal to 0, it straight away sets sail or starts its motion with the velocity va in a straight line like this. It has a uniform motion. Okay, so A sets off at uniform v0. Now, Janvi, again, you will contradict me and say that how it's possible for an object to straight away set off at v0. And the answer is yes, it is not possible. It has to accelerate for some time. But let's assume that, you know, like it's a less amount of speed, so it's just started off with, or somebody has kicked that, you know, so there's some kind of push that is being given. So a sharp impulse is acted, so it achieves that speed va, and it goes at that constant speed va. Okay, at uniform va along the straight line shown in the diagram. Okay, now at that same time, there is another ship B, and the ship B's job is to chase A. And this does it at a speed higher than this. So B is chasing A. Okay, at uniform speed VB, where VB is greater than VA, okay, such that it's at any instant its direction of velocity will be pointing to A. Just like that problem we had done that day on the triangle one. So there each particle was chasing each other. Here the difference is A is going at a constant uniform velocity. Whereas, so imagine this is the overhead view of a this thing, you know, of a seaport, and the ship A has just set off at constant VA in this direction. But the ship B, so at t equal to 0, when it starts chasing, the direction of VB is like this. But after some time, let's say A has reached here at time t. So A is continuing with that uniform velocity, okay, along that direction. But what about B? Now, by now, B will be somewhere here because B's direction is continuously changing. And at this instant, when B is here, its direction of velocity will be like this. So B has this kind of a curved kind of path. Even after this, it curves. Okay. So, and this distance between A and B is D initial. Okay. So this is such that its velocity VB at any instant, okay, is pointing at A. So we have to find the time after which B collides with A. Another very typical example of this is like this happens in the case of heat-seeking missiles. Like if one plane is going at that constant velocity in that direction, and then you set off a heat-seeking missile from this point, where this angle is 90 initially, this direction. Okay. So the missile will have that kind of, its path is continuously changing direction because its velocity vector is always directed towards the heat target, and the heat signature of that. So then you have to set off a decoy, right? If you're a fighter pilot, you have to send off a missile which is of higher temperature than your, you know, jet engines exhaust. So then it might get confused. Or in modern day aviation, you have flares. So not one missile, but a whole set of. So that completely confuses the missile, hopefully. Otherwise, you're gone. You people must be playing all those computer games also, no, with these things. Good. Okay, so how we will approach this problem? Let's try to think. Okay, so at some instant of time t, see the diagram I've drawn. Okay, so in this, the line from A to B or B to A, that is at some theta with respect to A's direction. So that theta is a variable. It's an instantaneous quantity. So try to understand the approach and separation velocity concept in terms of that theta, which is variable, and write an equation related to that. Then we will understand how to solve this. Even having said that, this question is very specific in the method of solving. So you will require some help in how to solve it. Okay, but just try to understand that concept first, that at the instantaneous time t, if you take one of the angles in that diagram as theta, whichever one you choose, how you can write the approach velocity in terms of that. Okay. So just started with that hint, and like I will help you with the diagram in a moment, then give you some more hints. We'll continue that. Okay, so let's first make a slightly more detailed diagram. Okay, so this was my starting position kind of thing, let's say. Okay. I don't really need this. Yeah, so A started from here and B started from here. So this was the velocity vector initially. So as you'll understand, a very small time later, when A is reached somewhere here, B would have reached somewhere here. Now B's velocity vector has become like this. But A's velocity vector continues to be like this. Okay. So that's how you understand that B is turning like this, and at some time t it's here. And by then, let's say A is somewhere over here. So A's velocity vector is like this, and B's velocity vector is now like this, directed along this line. Okay. So, but technically you understand that this line is different from this curve earlier. Okay? So this is at the time t. Okay. Now let us take this instantaneous angle, for example, as theta. Okay, so at time t, what is happening is at t equal to t, what is the approach velocity of b towards a? How much is it? Tell me. B's velocity is directly towards a, so it will contribute bb. Okay, but A's velocity is like this, which has a cos theta component, which is away from B, no? And a sin theta component, which is perpendicular, which will not contribute. No? So this will become minus of
VA sin theta, VA cos theta.
VA cos theta. Very good. Okay. D theta by dt. But at that instant, तो वो कोई instantaneous है ना. अभी उसको differentiate करेंगे तो हाँ d theta by dt आ जाएगा. So the instantaneous value is this, where we understand very interestingly that Vb is a constant. Is the speed of V. VA is also a constant, but what is variable here is theta. Theta is instantaneous. Okay, so if the instantaneous distance between A and B is S, so we can say that minus of ds by dt is equal to Vb minus VA cos theta. Okay, so this statement is making sense so far. So now if I try to integrate this, now let's say that after a certain period of time, this has gone on like this and curved, and they finally collided here. So suppose they've collided at some time capital T. So that's what we want to find, the time at which they collided. So if I now integrate this, okay, I won't of course directly be able to integrate because I don't know theta as a function of time. But if I set up the integration, what is happening at t equal to 0, what was the distance between them? It was whatever this d distance was. Okay, but at t equal to that unknown time t, the distance should have become 0. So left hand side में मेरा क्या आ जाएगा d, मतलब 0 minus of minus d. Right hand side में क्या आएगा? I can still break up the integral now. I can make it 0 to t dt like this bb minus va, which is a constant, integral cos theta dt. Okay, from 0 to t. So up to this step it's clear to both of you. Okay, now see, cos theta dt is something difficult to handle here because theta is instantaneous, it's variable. So I don't know how to do this. Okay, but in the diagram, can you see if cos theta has some other significance? Like right now we have seen cos theta का significance क्या था? That VA cos theta was like the separation velocity of B with respect to A, or rather A's separation. But is there any other significance of that? Okay, and you'll realize that significance if you think of what is the significance of VB cos theta. We saw the significance of VA cos theta. No? So VB cos theta is basically what? The component of B's velocity along my y-axis, if this is my y-axis. Okay, so alternatively, what we see, alternately, VB cos theta is basically the y component of velocity for B. So it is dy by dt for the particle B, isn't it? So what should be integration of VB cos theta with respect to time? It should be the change in the y coordinate of B. Okay, and now you can see that wherever they collide, if the y coordinate is some y final, A's y coordinate is the same as B's y coordinate. Okay, so if this is, see, they are starting from the x-axis, now both of them. So the y component of their displacement is same. That's an interesting thing. 0 to t में देख b का displacement क्या है? ये वाला vector है ऐसा, है ना? But उसका y component क्या है? ये projection है, which is the same as. So that will come to. Okay, so b's y coordinate is changing from 0 to y final in time 0 to t. So now we have this relation that Vb into cos theta dt from 0 to t is equal to V final, the final y coordinate. Okay, so we have got this second equation now. Let's see. We still got a whole bunch of unknown quantities. Okay, so but now we can use this trick. Now this first equation, let me modify it a little bit more. So this can be written as Vb into capital T, okay, minus Va into this integral thing from 0 to t. So this is my first equation. Okay, and now the other trick I'll use here is that the change in A's coordinate is equal to the change in B's coordinate from 0 to t, which is equal to y final. Okay, and A is moving at a constant velocity along. Okay, so VA into T is equal to Y final. What? So now this is my third equation. Okay, so what happens is that my VB integral cos theta dt from 0 to T is equal to Y final. That is equal to VA into T. This is substituting this in the second equation and we are getting this. Okay, so now I can see that I can write cos theta dt from 0 to T as what? VA by VB into T. Let's bring this constant here. Okay, and now substitute this back in the first equation. So it's like, you know, we've almost cheated the question without understanding anything about how theta is changing with respect to time, but just understanding that there is a relation for integral of cos theta with respect to time. So when you do this question for the first time, it seems like you almost got an answer by cheating. Because again, so time kitna ho gaya mera? Time ho gaya d into VB divided by VB square minus VA square. And also you can see that this does not make any sense if VB is equal to VA, which means that they will never collide, because it will give you an indefinite solution or undefined solution. And again, it will not make sense if VB is less than VA also, because it will give you time less than 0, which is not physically possible. It only makes sense when VB is greater than VA, and that is giving you the time when they collide. Okay.
So, coordinate of A and B is equal only when they collide.
When they collide, yes, exactly. So at capital T time only. Okay, so this condition that we've written, this is only from 0 to T. Okay, at time of collision. So the y component of A's displacement is equal to the y component of B's displacement at the time T equal to capital T. Okay. So that is a little trick over here. Okay. So this is per se not a JEE advanced level question. It's more like an Olympiad level question, because the whole thing is the subjective solution. But this is also a very interesting application of approach velocity. So that's why I wanted to.
Sir, how do JEE and Olympiads differ?
They differ in this only, that the Olympiad questions are more analytical and require like more steps in solving. So they are not questions that can be done within a few minutes. I mean, within like 3 or 4 minutes. Okay. That's why in maths also, like you can see, similarly in physics Olympiads, you see, they require a lot of analysis and a lot of pen work in solving. And yeah, there are certain topics which go slightly beyond. I mean, when you come to the national level, like the NSO level, now the name has changed for that from this year onwards. But what was previously the NSO level of Olympiads, and then after that the INPHO, Indian National Physics Olympiad, and then the IPHO, International Physics Olympiads. So there the level, there the syllabus also goes slightly beyond the JEE syllabus. There are some additional topics. But in physics, they are only just one can prepare those extra topics without like too much of extra work. In maths, like the Olympiad syllabus goes quite a bit beyond the JEE syllabus, especially in probability, algebra, and all that. Also, number theory. Number theory goes way beyond. In physics, one can comfortably prepare for Olympiad side by side along with your JEE physics. You just need to do like books like Erudov up to a certain point and then some extra questions. Okay, people, so pay special attention to this particular question we have done in the end today when you are revising approach velocity applications. So as of now, you will find that this will help you in two things. One is the concept of approach velocity makes constraint relation problems very easy in fully constrained and those kind of things. Okay. And the other is you will see that there are some special types of questions in kinematics like this one, then the particles chasing each other along a polygon, the triangle one example that we saw in class the other day, those type of questions. So there are some set type of questions that we can use approach velocity concept. Okay. But mainly for us, in physics, we'll see in future chapters like work energy and all that. The constraint relation way of, the approach velocity way of handling constraint relation problems helps us a lot. Next time, I'll also show you how wedge constraints can be understood using approach and separation velocity. Last time we saw the pulley constraint type of problems. Okay, pulley with where the angle is variable of the thread. We'll also see wedge constraints, how they can be derived very easily. Okay. So people, with that, we conclude today's session. Thanks very much for attending. Have a very nice day. We'll pick it up from, I think, the doubt session we'll have mostly on Monday. In that, we'll pick up more questions of kinematics also. You can also continue reading the theory part for circular motion from Resnick or NCRT, whatever you're using. So you can go ahead with acceleration of non-uniform circular motion, more detailed understanding of tangential acceleration, and then the dynamics part. So particularly in the dynamics part, the banking angle of rods, that is something that we'll discuss in detail in the next class. So you can go through that in the theory part. So that's it, people. Wish you a nice day. That's end of today's lecture.
Sir, I have some doubts.
Yeah, Janvi, you have some doubts?
Yes, sir. Sir, in elastic and inelastic collision, what all is conserved?
What is conserved in elastic collision? Beta, both momentum and energy are conserved. Like kinetic energy after the collision is equal to the kinetic energy before the collision. So
And sir, it's
very
not
simple
conserved.
example is if a ball is bouncing off the floor with a perfectly elastic collision, then the impact speed will be equal to the speed immediately after impact because no kinetic energy is lost. Okay. Now, if two particles are colliding and that's a perfectly elastic collision, then there will also be momentum conservation along with kinetic energy conservation. Whereas in inelastic collision, there is dissipation of kinetic energy.
Okay, sir. Okay.
Okay. Okay.
But momentum is conserved.
Yeah. So I think we will have a physical doubt session also very soon. In you're in which center, Janvi?
Kharghar.
Sorry.
Kharghar.
Kharghar, no? So we'll have a physical doubt session in Kharghar also sometime soon. Last 2 weeks I've been having some physical doubt sessions in Nerul also. So hopefully very soon in Kharghar also. So we can pick up the doubts in that also or in the next doubt session. Okay.
Okay, sir. Thank you, sir.